Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
From Africans living abroad has declined tremendously. And this has had some adverse effect on African countries who depend on remittances from Africans living abroad for sustainability, for income, to boost the economy. Well, we'll be taking a look at the impact this has had. Of course, it's no news that global crisis has, led to where we are today with the reduction in remittances from Africans in diaspora. Joining us virtually is Kunle Lawal, who's the executive director of the Electoral College. But just to let you know that I still do have my partner, not in crime, right here. Blessing.
Partner in shipping policy.
Yes, indeed. Just before we get to Kunle, who is already standing by, you notice that a lot of people who are in the diaspora are no longer sending money home, especially even considering the fact that if we had to put Naira in the equation, the Naira against the dollar is a bit on the high, yet nobody's repatriating funds back home.
Well, that's because there's been global inflation trends. So even the family members or Africans in the diaspora also hit with the inflation problem. And so some of them have their families and themselves to cater to. Yeah. So it's the man who's well-fed, who's satisfied his immediate need, that you think of families in Africa. These are some of the reasons why there's been a drop. And we know that the global conflict too has impacted some of the countries. If you had family members in Russia, in Ukraine, well, of course, you expect that the remittances in those places will drop. If you have family members in places like Israel, the remittance might drop because they too are impacted by conflict and so many other factors.
Well, decreased remittances can lead to, various outcomes. But then let's put Kunle Lawal into the equation right now. Very good morning to you, Kunle.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be on the program.
Glad to have you join us on Early Exchange this morning.
Thank you. Of course, it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so Kunle, if you can hear me, I'll just put my feet right on the pedal and get straight to the point. Let us first and foremost lay the cards on the table. Let's ascertain what countries have been affected the most by these remittances.
First and foremost, I would say remittances have actually been hurt by mostly African countries. The developed countries don't really rely on this. That's countries in Europe or in Asia or in America. And this is because remittances become a staple or a thing of the economy only if your currency cannot be how would I put it, cannot be there. It's not, your currency is not relevant on a high level globally. Now, I don't think anybody who's an American working in Nigeria, America will really be concerned about remittances in Naira. But other countries like even the UK, they all function on remittances also, but it doesn't affect the mainstay of the economy. Like looking at coming to Nigeria is a country that, of course, its remittances are even higher than crude oil, the money we amass from crude oil. And I think it's overtaking that. It's been the highest earner for us since 2017 or 2016. But as we are seeing, global recessions, the war in Russia and Ukraine, as she rightly mentioned in the studio, and other prevalent issues in Nigeria, and abroad, have caused quite a quagmire in remittances from abroad. So when you look at it, the situation is so bad because African countries actually rely on these remittances to ensure that their economies are stable, and they plan with it in their government.
All right, so the report has that some African countries actually heavily rely on diaspora remittances, countries like Gambia, Lesotho, Liberia, and it contributes to 1/5 of the gross domestic product of this country. Now, in Nigeria, Nigeria received about 19.5 billion in diaspora inflow. which is actually low compared to what the country is expected to receive. But here, before we began the conversation, we're talking about remittances dropping due to global conflict. Could you tell us some of the reasons why these remittances have dropped and how it might affect these countries that heavily rely on diaspora remittances?
First and foremost, we must critically understand that post-COVID, the world has been in a recession. Let's not even talk about let's not talk about the war alone in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine is an aspect, but preceding that, there has been drops in remittances, and this issue comes from the economic drain since COVID. Post-COVID, everyone has been struggling across the world. Britain, you've seen increased mortgages. Europe, you've seen quite high taxes. America too is barely pulling itself out of the water. Because of that, Africans who are living abroad cannot afford to send as much as they used to back home. This also is cultural with the fact that most countries also, people are cutting jobs. Jobs are more available to indigenous of those nations than they are to foreign nationals. Foreign nationals are actually losing jobs, and this is what happens in a recession. It's kind of a culture shock of what happens when there's a recession in any country. So all those increased taxes, etc., all attributes to factors that help or factors that actually reduce the remittances Africans get.
I mean, pardon me, probably coming from an ignorant point of view, but then is it possible that a reduction in remittances could actually lead to an increase in the Japa syndrome, migration from Africa to Western nations? Is there a correlation between that?
So I think that's a very brilliant perspective to bring into the conversation. And it's not, I don't think you can term it an ignorant position or an ignorant point when you make that hypothesis. But the truth is that if you look at it economically, the increase in Japa will, of course, mean there are more people that they probably cared about or whatever have left, which also can hypothetically affect the amount of remittances. And let's be key with this. Remittances is not only the money that is being sent back to people in what they call it, people back home. It's also monies accrued from things like renewing Nigerian passports, other things, coming back to Nigeria, etc., that people abroad do. And all those have dropped. So that means there's a massive drop in people wanting to even come back home and check and see what's going on, because there's an economic recession. And then also Nigeria has been a little unstable in some parts of the nation, which also has limited people wanting to return home and come and spend a good time or a holiday at home. So that also affects the drop in remittances.
Also been said to be why there is a decline in remittances is the cost of transfer, cost of transaction. Why is there high cost in transaction?
It's critical to note at this time that because Nigeria is going through an economic quagmire, Nigeria has forced increase on its foreign transactions, and it has tried to limit. I don't know for what reason or how this makes economic sense, but it has tried to limit monies going out. And in going out, it has indirectly limited monies coming in. We all remember that we can't use our basic Nigerian cards to pay for, things we used to pay for, like for those that use iPhones, Apple Music, Western Union is no more an easy thing to pull off. All these things, though there are things like Remit Pay and etc., but all these are quite harder ways than what was normally regular to Nigerians. And Nigeria has also assumed that this will help stabilize the Naira, but it clearly isn't. The amount of dollars that come into this country based on restrictions taken by the Buhari government preceding the elections have totally drastically affected remittances. And this is me calling it the exact issues and plans. Though their plan then was to improve the base of the Naira, I was thinking that when this government came in, that the present finance minister will have a look into it. But we've maintained status quo. And as long as we keep that, I don't see the Naira stabilizing, because there must be a high inflow of dollars for the Naira to stabilize. We interact in the world interacts in dollars for now, and that is the stable currency. And if we're not having enough of that, the Naira would not be stable. So I think these restrictions that have been put in based on economic policies to try and balance the Naira or balance the economy has ended up backfiring on the remittances coming in.
The chairman of the presidential tax reforms, Taiwo Idili, actually said that most of these remittances do not get into the formal forex market of Nigeria, and that most of these transfers are actually externalized from digital transfers from other countries. Is there a way to correct this? You've talked about some of the policies that have been done, but you know, there were partners, agencies that were actually taking up this duty of ensuring transfers from one country to the other, facilitating this. Is this a time to call them? Is this a time to make some policies that will favor this transfer so it flows into the formal system?
I think it's more than time. I don't think you need Nostradamus to come back and predict that that's the future we should be heading towards. It's very clear that we've made quite a lot of errors in trying to hold the Naira or stabilize the Naira. That we've done things that have even sent Naira down the soccer way. So it's clear that yes, we were trying to limit the dollars going out. We broke deals with foreign transactions. It's harder to send money from a direct foreign account, to a Nigerian account. You can't even use your Nigerian card online. Now, the stop on the Nigerian card online was to ensure that we're not spending so much abroad. But there's also a backlash for that. It also means that people abroad cannot also throw dollars this way that fast. So Nigeria has to realize it should open up its economy, handle its inflows better, and find a way to mitigate its outflow. Yeah, and it could be as simple as just saying nobody in Nigeria should hold more than $10,000 and put it flatline, and nobody is above the limit, whether it's a politician, it's a popular businessman, or etc. Nobody should hold $10,000 in Nigeria, and I think if that happens, we might be able to hold physical cash 10,000. Then maybe put a limit on $1 million for private individuals, and let's say $10 million or $100 million for business entities. If we restrict that, we'll be controlling things better instead of taking restrictions on transfers, bank policies, and etc., which of course will not allow us grow as a country.
Well, I mean, for that to happen, strong legislative actions have to, be put in place. But then some school of thought, some persons believe that the fluctuation of the Naira to the dollar has also had some adverse effect on remittances. You're not certain of how much you're sending back. I mean, you want to send like $100 back home. You want to remit $100. Today is 1,200. Tomorrow is 1,500. And some of the days is 1,700. That instability makes it difficult for you to probably, pay for something or achieve something with the sum. I don't know. Do you also belong to that school of thought? Is it something, you align with or not?
First and foremost, I'd like to clear something. It doesn't take any legislative action. The CBN falls under the executive. It's an executive decision. When Emefiele took those decisions, it was with the CBN in conjunction with the presidency. So it's an executive decision. It has nothing to do with legislative powers in Nigeria. Secondly, do I believe that you said something about the school of thought? Could you repeat that? I didn't quite catch it.
So some persons are of the opinion that the fluctuation in the Naira against the dollar also affect remittances. So I'm asking if you align with that school of thought.
No, I don't. I don't. The truth is, the what affected the remittance, what affected the real crux of the issue is the policies we made, which has affected the Naira, which indirectly has affected remittances. So if we're going to deal with the real problem, what it's going to mean is that we're going to have to go back to engage our policies or cascade our policies down, and then get something that's more direct and more with the Nigerian people. Yeah, we can't use a symptom to cure a disease, and the remittances have dropped because, of course, like you rightly put, people don't know how much they're sending back. But that's because of the policies we took before. So what you're receiving in that is an aftershock of bad policies that have been taken by the CBN and the federal government.
Let's get back to something you highlighted earlier, talking about African migrants abroad losing jobs to the natives or to indigenes. What can we attribute this to, apart from the economic downturn? Could it be a result of the skills level? I know there are skills that are well sought after. So could it be that some of the migrants, African migrants in developed countries, do not have the kind of skills that make them highly sought for?
I think more than normal, Nigerians, or I would speak for Nigeria. Nigerians fall among the most skilled people in diaspora. And if you even go across America, if you're talking of foreign nationals that are skilled, I think Nigeria ranks number 1 or 2 of foreign nationals, most skilled foreign nationals. So it's not a case of foreign nationals, but every country first is mandated by its constitution to take care of its citizens first, regardless of skill level. So in any country that is falling back, Greece, Ukraine, or whatever, if a Ukrainian doctor has a job and a Nigerian doctor has a job, Ukraine will rather retain a Ukrainian doctor and send Nigerian back home or send him to wherever he's going to go or let him go generally because he has his country, he has where he's going to, he has what he's going to do, and he has where he's headed to. And for me, that's what it is. It's not a necessary factor of those skills. No, that's not. It's never been that. It's the fact that countries are economically tested to do what's right in their own country according to their own citizens. It's just like Nigeria, for example. I don't think, Nigeria is quite a complex issue. Let me not use Nigeria. But a general country will defend its citizens and provide for them generally.
Now, since we're talking about global conflict and how it has affected Africa's diaspora remittances, you talked about countries protecting their own. So there's some protectionist policy there. We've also seen in some places where there is xenophobia and where there is some other issues affecting foreign nationals in that country. In the context of global conflict, how can they be addressed?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's the nature of man to dislike what is not him. They use words like them, they, us. And it's not only common in Nigeria. So I'll give you an example and let's bring it home a little bit. So we're Nigerians and we admire when people in the UK, Nigerians in the UK, take up political positions or in the US. Let's come back home. Would we allow a Hausa man to become governor of, let's say, Lagos? We won't. So it's human nature to fight what they don't understand or take sides with things. So it's not even and the only thing that triggers it the most is a bad economy. If things are very fine, nobody will care what tribe or what national is doing anything. So it's more a social problem than it is an economic problem. That's with regards to xenophobia affecting such a situation. That's what I think.
All right, Kunle, let me bring you back to the front burner now. We've been talking about remittances here, and indeed, we've noticed that most remittances have been directed towards food, healthcare, upkeep, basically, for Africans, in Africa, coming from probably family, friends who are in diaspora. What can be done to mobilize a more investment directed remittance? What can be done to boost that so that you're sending money back for purpose of investment, development, and all of that?
The first thing is you want that solve security in Nigeria. It's very simple. Nobody will invest in a country that's not secure. Now, this is not to say that Nigeria is not secure. It's not as bad as people are thinking. But the truth is, it's actually not secure, being honest. And security is the first thing when you are considering investments. Then when that security has been done, you need to put down policies which are favorable. You don't need to know somebody in the lands office to get the house built. You don't need to bribe somebody in one place. So those are basic things we need to get. If we do that, remittances will go up by far. Because Nigeria has quite a lot of people abroad. And truth about every Nigerian is that they love home. You see it, Nigerian movies are being shown in foreign countries. Nigerians love home. But the country as itself, Nigeria as itself, has not taken a decision to ensure that these people that love home are well taken care of and feel the need to invest back in home. For me, I think that's where the disconnect is.
All right, talking about the use of the remittances not actually being channeled into major investments, if you've noticed a kind of trend, some African countries are actually launching diaspora bonds. Nigerian government is doing that as well. Kenya government will do that. What is your take on this diaspora bonds? Is it a way to give a kind of focus to the remittances rather than go directly to families and then they use them for basic expenses?
I feel it's a bandage to a bandage to already a big wound. Yeah, diaspora bonds will be a temporary measure to solve, but it's not solving problem. You must first stabilize the Nigerian economy. When you stabilize, when foreign remittances are made, people can make other decisions, invest in a house, invest in that, invest in this. But as long as the economy remains as it is, a man is going to think of his 5 basic needs, which are, of course, food, shelter, health, basic needs, just basic. Because that's what is a problem in an undeveloped or in a developing country. So you can't wish these things away economically or with fiscal policy. It's always a basic need. I think it's Henry Mansell that has the theory of needs, which clearly states man has to eat, man has to be feel protected, have shelter, and those are basic needs before other things come into play. So if we really want to do it, we'll have to face the economy, balance it out, and then whilst using diaspora bonds, then people will start to invest and get things done easily. Thank you.
Okay, so we understand that you're also pressed for time, so we're gradually winding down so that you could get back to what you're doing. But there's been this issue as to alternative in ways or the processes of remitting back home. Some persons prefer solutions in that regards, and they say, let's have competition, let's have multiple sources or ways to which people can remit or send money back home. I wonder what you think about that. It feels like if you have more competition, then people will have more options, and then it's going to be a lot easier to send money back home. Part B of that would be the role of technology in ensuring that these processes are actually less cumbersome than they are right now.
First and foremost, to answer both last party and B, Nigeria made it cumbersome. If you go back 4 years ago, it was so easy to send money from Nigeria or from abroad to Nigeria. It happened in seconds. Technology already has done that. We made it cumbersome with our policies. So we need to undo those policies, which is back to the first thing I've said. Till we get those policies out of the way, the restrictions on dollars we actually put restrictions on dollars going out. But the thing is that when you put such restrictions, we've also put restriction on dollars coming in. So if we relax those restrictions, I think remittances will go far back to where they're supposed to be. Because quite a lot of people need help and whatever. Then we can start to provide other economic balances, and then to try and see how we can build the economy to a point where people will be looking for things other than food and health and shelter. And once we are able to meet up with all that, I think we'll be able to balance the situation with remittances.
Now, let's look at those who are in the business of international money transfer. This drop in Africa's diaspora remittance, how is it impacting their business?
I think that's a very, very open question. It doesn't. I don't think anyone can answer that. It clearly, of course, shows clearly that if there's a drop in all that, you can see a drop in some local money, some local financial institutions. That's smaller financial institutions, micro institutions. They're seeing a drop in the bank's operations abroad. If you go back 4 or 5 years, major banks you were seeing them launching in different African countries abroad, opening. That has dropped also. And for me, I think a lot of sectors have suffered from this policy. I think it was well targeted at politicians initially, but it ended up creating something far worse than what we thought we would see. So we lose more, and like I stated earlier in this conversation, we lose more when we make such policies. In trying to solve a little problem, we've shot our nose to spite our eye, and that's the situation in Nigeria. Remittances.
But in this case, it's not just about the policy that is resulting to a drop. You've also talked about the fund not necessarily being available for those who would send. Well, we wish our brothers in the diaspora a good season, because there are many countries that depend on them. I know if I ask you what should those countries that depend heavily on remittance to do, you'd ask them to work for their own. What would you say?
I'll tell them to get a life. That's what I'll say. They should actually get a life. because no country and no nation can continue to rely on what comes from outside. I don't understand it, because like a country like Nigeria approximately has about 4.5% of the world's entire natural resources. So Nigeria is not in a situation to start to look for what's outside. And if you're talking of human resource, we're a country of over 200 million. Human resource is massive. The potential to do great things. We're blessed with so many natural resources. So we've chosen not to move forward. So we can't say this conversation of reliance on remittances is actually an economical way forward for any nation.
All right, thank you so much. We need to let you go. Kunle Lawal, the Executive Director, Electoral College, Nigeria, and he's spoken to some of the reasons that have been adduced for the drop in Africa's diaspora remittance. Well, he said there are so many resources that Nigeria is blessed with. Same with African countries. We can begin to look inward, tapping into those resources rather than waiting for manna to fall from heaven in 2024. Thank you so much, Kunle Lawal.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right, Issy, what are your thoughts?
Well, I can understand why probably a cousin of mine who has been abroad has not been sending money. Having listened to Kunle, there's been a decline, in jobs, recession, the war, Ukraine, Russia. So many people who even lived in Ukraine and Russia relocated to some other European countries. And then for them, they've not been able to settle in. They've not found a job. Some of them are still squatting. Some have had it easy. It's been like a lease of life. It's been better for them. But you can imagine the adverse effect it would have had, considering, that period where we had the onset of the invasion of Ukraine, if I had to describe it that way. So at home or in Africa, you would probably be feeling abandoned. You feel some sort of, because some people here are basically dependent on their family members and friends for sustenance. I mean, the fact that they even eat is the fact is, and then
It's because
someone
they
is
have
sending,
people abroad who will send them money.
and you realize that someone sent you $100. It might not seem like much. I don't know how to describe it. $100 is a big deal, but someone just hands it over to you, and then you change it, and you're getting hundreds of dollars, and you feel it's very easy, and you're wondering. I mean, he gave me $100. He could actually give me 500.
There is
Do you
more
understand?
where that came
And you
from.
never can tell that. That might be a week's wage that he puts together and gives to you.
Working in the cold.
Exactly, strenuous conditions, expectations, and then you have to put in hours and hours of work unending. But I mean, the direction now should tilt towards how we can maximize whatever is coming into Africa and direct it towards the angle of investment. Not just, if I had to use the Igbo word, abata eke, which simply
Please
or loosely
translate.
translates to, cash and grab or something like that. You just come in and you share it. You get it, you share, you chop, I chop, and stuff. We go our separate ways. So we need to start looking forward to how we can actually put the money to work. What we can, look forward to local production. I mean, I remember some guy who had reached out to me at some point before I left the East, trying to see if he could, get across to people who construct machines, local artisans who could put cassava machines together, who could, manufacture machines for cassava processing, palm oil processing, to see if they can invest in that, so that you have these things locally. They can be sourced. You go to a farm, you get the cassava, you peel, you process gari, fufu, you get the palm, you've processed, you have the palm kernel, you have the oil, and then you now have, even if you're not exporting, you can satisfy
But at
the
least that's a
immediate
means of
market.
earning.
Yeah, so it's a wake-up call to people who are living abroad. Yes, remit as much as you can, but then start. It's not just erecting a house in your village, which some realtors believe you put up a house in the village and nobody's living there. The value of that house or whatever funds you've gotten, to invest in that, it's just stuck there. It's not
You
generating
even
any
need
form
to
of
spend
income.
more money in maintaining the house. because
Exactly.
You will spend more in maintaining a house that is not habited than one where you have people living.
So-
These days, there's been a redefinition of what an asset is. People used to think that once you have a house somewhere,
Yeah.
that's an asset. But if that house is not bringing you some form of income, then of course you can't really call that an asset, or you could say maybe it's an asset that is wasting. This dependency syndrome that kind of exists. Well, I think what has fueled that is the communal living, the communal way of interacting in Africa, that where people care for their neighbor, or Africans care for their neighbors, care for their family members. So whether you're abroad or, for instance, you're in Lagos,
expect
in
that a
Nigeria,
cousin of
and you
yours,
have
a
some family
relative
members in the
who should
village,
go swim.
they expect that you bring some things back home, you send some money back home, not really caring how it is for you. Same thing that has been extended to those who are outside of Nigeria, outside of Ghana, outside of Kenya. But as long as you are in some place that is considered to have better conditions than where you left, then there is expectation that you must send some things back home. And there are people who look to you at the end of the month, at the end of certain time, to say, oh, send back something. But that can be broken when, from the beginning, bringing up children, raising young people, they're taught that there is dignity. This thing they say,
In labor.
there's dignity in labor. It seems to be a saying that people don't want to hear anymore. There is dignity in labor, because if someone is sending
You have to put the work.
$100 maybe a month, there's limitation to what you can do with that. Imagine if you earn in addition to that. So you could even have more for yourself when you actually earn, and you earn the respect of those abroad. So when you even call them, sometimes it goes without saying, without you asking, they're willing to offer. But when they know that whenever they see your number calling, then there's a demand on the line. And so some of them begin to run away. Let's also consider what they go through in trying to make a living. Some have families there. They have bills to pay. They have taxes to pay. And
A lot
way
of
they can
bills.
pay those taxes. They must pay. So let's also think about them. I was watching a documentary. One would think that this dependency syndrome is limited to Africa alone.
No.
It's not. This were African Americans talking about how people ask for money, and when you say no, they hate you. And then somebody said, eventually, the hate will come. It's just that it's a gradual step. So somebody asked for $100, ask for $10 today. So I don't want them to hate me. You give them, and they have nothing gainfully doing. They're not gainfully employed, no matter how small what they earn.
It comes with that sort of entitlement mentality. I mean, yes, let's not just seem like it's just Africa.
No,
I mean,
it's
if
not.
you take a look at survey, you realize that the highest remittances in the world goes back to India.
Yes.
Indians are scattered, and one of the largest population in the world at that as well. They're scattered all over in UK, in the US. You have Indian Americans. You have, I mean, the former prime minister was.
Yes, Rishi Sunak, former Prime Minister of UK.
So it's really crazy that sometimes people feel it's an African thing.
It's not.
People all over the world depend on their family members and friends who are in more developed nations for some sort of sustenance. But then when I feel it gets bad is when you have that tiny entitlement mentality.
Do you call it tiny? In some cases,
I'm trying to
have you
manage my
seen
words.
aggressive beggars?
Yes, no.
When beggars have choice. So it's not 100. You can't be sending me $100, bro. I know how much you earn. It has to be something big. I'm just trying to paint some scenarios of what happens.
I've seen people outside the shores of Nigeria put up the prices of certain commodities. If you look at the price of accommodation, some of them who are abroad, who send you $100, are living in studio apartments.
Yes.
They cannot afford to pay so much on two-bedroom apartment. And if they're living in two-bedroom, it's a shared apartment. You're sharing those apartments so that you can, I mean, this guy, we here are probably even living. There's a tourist, a white tourist who goes about, various destinations in Nigeria. And he was trying to adduce to the fact that abroad, you want to buy a car, you go pay, installments. You pay in installments. It's paid instrumentally. You could have 30% or 50% down payment, and you spread the rest of the payment. Right?
That's why they have credit cards.
And then you now want to pay for a house. You probably have saved up, and you now go for mortgage and start paying, monthly or yearly for that. You miss a year, you double it. The interest rate increases. But then you come to Nigeria. You want to buy a car. You pay upfront.
Yes, you want to buy land.
If you pay upfront for it. You want to pay for your house. I've noticed that some of those trends are gradually seeping through the border, and it's becoming a thing. I know some persons who here can say, oh, if you've worked in a place for 6 months, they can actually afford to pay for your rent, and you repay them with a certain percentage monthly. And then some persons you say pay 50% of the car. But Nigerians and Africans are not averse to they are averse to that method of ownership. They're not inclined, yes, that's the word, to obtaining or owning properties by that method. They have cash for grant,
yes,
and they get it done. And so probably it's a what do I call it? I don't want to call it a regional thing, a mindset, or that's just the perception
comes
here.
From pride too, where someone wants to point to a particular thing and say,
"This is
I bought this, I own this," and that sort of thing. But the thing here, you've touched on the point that whatever it is that is remitted should be judiciously used. It should be invested. There are people who have sent money for some form of investment to their relatives, and the money got squandered, and so they lost that trust, that interest to want to invest. Well, if there's a way that this thing can be organized, that not necessarily it has to be your brother or your sister building a house for you, running some investment for you, where if you don't trust them that they will deliver, it can be an organization so that the remittance can be encouraged. Because yes, it's agreed that some Africans abroad are maybe struggling because where they are, the economy there too is not really doing so well. But some of them just have trust issues, so they rather keep their money back than send to people who would not put the money to good use.
Well, crazy times that we're experiencing, and I'm sure trust issues are rife because with the high rate of what do you call it now, scamming going on across the world, you realize people are hardly they find it very difficult to trust persons and open up. And then technology has also made it easier for you to be able to how do I describe that? Take from people, like you could access people's accounts if you have their CV2 numbers, details of their credit and debit card. And so people are also very careful of that. And probably one of the reasons that remittances have been tightened a lot more. You want to send money, you have to get some sort of authentication, you have to get the code, you have to get, PIN codes and stuff like that. I mean, technology has its adverse and negative and positives to it, but it's good that if we hold or hang on to the part where I'm insisting, return money back home, yeah? But then make sure what you're bringing back is for the purpose of investment. Nobody's saying don't give to your family, don't provide for, but then think how you can have some sustainability. You can have the money you're sending back multiply, increase, so that it also serves as some form of income
Yes,
for you.
it's saving actually for the rainy day. And here at Sick News, we open your eyes to where there are opportunities as much
Yeah.
as we talked about the challenges. There's an opportunity for those who are investment bankers, those who want to go into some form of diaspora investment
Even the
scheme.
shares now that is
Yeah,
trending.
so you could think about that if you're a broker. You could think of ways to create some form of ways for those in the diaspora to remit their money into some investment. I'm sure they'll appreciate that. Don't worry, you can send us thanks later in Sick News. But you can, if you still need us to help you spread the message, and you need to be able to send the message more and more often so everybody gets to hear of how you've come up with some form of diaspora investment, reach out to us on at Sick News TV, and we'll help you blow the trumpet of your business. But as I'm saying, we're also open for business. You can place your adverts here, and we'll push your business forward. I am Blessing AHA. It's a wrap on today's edition of the show. Join us again tomorrow, 8 a.m. West African time. Be sure to follow us on the social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and X at Sick News TV. Leave a comment. We'll appreciate to hear from you.
Well, it's been great being here, and of course, we're looking forward to what the rest of the day unfolds for us. Market Insight comes up, I think 11. Yes, indeed. So keep your dates, set your alarms, set your reminders, join Market Insight, and of course, enjoy the rest of our programming right here on Souk News Television. My name is Temple Barra. On behalf of everyone who's in the MCR and behind the camera, thank you so much for watching.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.